In this tutorial, I'm going to go over how to make some posters to put on your wall. This same method can be used for picture frames, TV screens, all sorts of different applications. I have two posters on my desktop. One of them is Back to the Future, and the other is a movie called Adele Blanc Sec. They are both different sizes. It is very important to get the size of your image. And to do that on Windows, right click on it and go all the way down to Properties, and then go to Details. Now you can see it's 951 by 1280, and the other one is 916 by 1422. If you're on a Mac, right click and get Info, and if you scroll down, there will be the size. I'm going to open up Maya, and I'm going to start with a plane. And we'll just get out of that. And I'm going to make it 1 by 1. And right now we have a square poster. If you have a perfectly square picture, then this is what you need. However, ours are generally not going to be square. So I'm going to get back to my subdivision width and height. And not subdivisions, just the width and height. And I want to get those dimensions. So for the first one, it is 951 by 1280. 951 is a lot of units to type in this. So instead of doing 951, I'm going to do 9.51 and 12.8. It'll be the same proportions, just a lot smaller. 9.51 and 12.8. So I zoom out, it is now the correct size for the movie poster. I do want to give it a little bit of a frame, so I'm going to select the edges, extrude out a little bit, and then give it a translate Z to get it to go straight out. If I do thickness, it will do the same thing. Does not really matter which one you choose. And you make it however large you want that frame to be. And then I'll extrude it straight back. I'm going to bevel these edges a little bit. And bring up these segments. You definitely can bevel the corners here. I'm not going to do so for right now. I'm just going to keep it as it is. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And here is the first poster. Pretty happy with it. And I can do something very similar for my other one, which is 916 by 1422. So 9.16 by 14.22. And I'm going to create just another very simple frame. Alright, so now I have two frames, one for each poster. They do need to be UV'd, so let me jump into the UVing editor. Their default UVs are not going to work. So I'm going to go down to camera based, hit unfold. It'll be pretty good. Depending on how much you extrude it, it might actually work, but I still like to cut the four corners. So top and bottom. And do the same thing for the other. Depending on how many posters you have on this layout, you might need to make these much smaller. But since these are the only things that I currently have, I'm going to make them take up as much room as I can. I do want to make sure that the top is actually the top. So you can see this face is actually on the bottom, This face is the top, so this one is upside down. It's going to rotate it 180 degrees. So left is left, right is right, and up is up. I'm going to export these as an FBX file. And open up Substance Painter. And I'll go to File, New, select those posters, and hit OK. If you don't see anything, it might be because you're just looking at it from the back. So rotate your camera around until you see your pictures, or your posters. Next, I'm going to drag my two images into my assets down on the bottom, and make sure they are both set to texture, because they are two-dimensional images. And at the bottom, I'm going to change it to current session, so they delete when I close Painter. I now have these two movie posters here, and I'm going to drag the first one onto my posters, and as you can see, it's not actually a material. So unlike the other things we've imported, we can't just drag and drop it. We have to start with a fill layer, which will work as the base for our material, and we can drag and drop it over here to base color. It's going to fill everything, which is not exactly what we want. It is going to repeat, so if I scale this down, you can see that it is just going to repeat forever. There are a few ways to fix this, but first let's fix the sizing issue. I'm going to, in my UV editor, or the UV viewing, which if you don't know how to get to it, you have up here on the top of your viewport, 3D only, 3D and 2D, and 2D only. I'm going to go to 3D and 2D, and hit Q if you don't have this manipulator, the transform. I will toggle it on and off. You also have this button on the very top left called Show Hide Manipulator. And I'm going to drag it so the edge is right up to the end of my poster. And it should fit quite nice. I still have it repeating everywhere, and I can either make a mask, so say a black mask, get my polygon fill, and select the polygon where I want it to show, or I can select my fill layer, and at the very top of my properties where it says UV wrap repeat, I can turn that to none. So now it is only going to exist where I put it. It does not really matter which one you choose. However, I do have it actually on the wrong one. So all I have to do is drag it over and then rescale it to fit. And that looks much better. And if it needs to be bigger or smaller, just hit Q and you can move it around. You can then texture the picture frame however you want. So I might look for just a plastic material, and I'll choose this one. It'll flood fill everything, so I will make a mask. Select my mesh fill, face fill, and I'm just going to fill in all of this, then swap between black and white and deselect the center. And I do want to have a black picture frame. So I have a pretty nice looking picture frame. I'm going to go back to my fill layer with the poster and just call it, and give it a name. And then if I scroll down, I have all of my different channels that I'm using: color, height, roughness, metal, normal, opacity, and emissive. I'm going to turn off opacity, emissive, normal, and height, and metal. You can see it doesn't look any different because there's no information for any of those channels. There is going to be some roughness information, and I can change how I want it to look. If I bring it all the way white, it'll be not shiny or reflective at all. It'll be more like a poster, paper poster. If I bring it all the way black, it'll be much more reflective, and there could be some glass in there. It doesn't have to go all the way. You go part way, it'll still look like there is a pane of glass without actually having to put it in. Up to you on how you want it to look. You can turn on metal if you want to have more of a metal poster. It'll have some more very reflective metallic properties. You can turn down some of that roughness and get some pretty nice end results. To find your other imported texture, if you know what it's named, you can look for it. So I believe mine was called Back to the Future. And I'll just make another fill layer, drag it to my base color, turn off my repeat, and scale it down. There we go. You can do the same or different adjustments. And if you want to have the same picture frame, all you have to do is add to this mask. You don't need to create a new layer. And you have your pictures that will look pretty nice. You can definitely go more with a picture frame. It does not have to be this simple, partially beveled rectangle. You can do whatever you want, but this is the basics of getting it from one to the other. If you want to add a glow effect, so say you have a backlit poster, I would go to the poster that I want to glow, turn on my emissive, and drag that same image to the emissive channel. You might not see much in Painter, but if I turn on my settings, which you can find under display settings and shader settings in the top right, I'm going to scroll down in display and turn on post effects and glare, and then change my shape to bloom. And then in my shader settings, near the top I have my emissive, and it will start to give it a glow. Just because you have it glowing in Painter does not mean that it will glow in Unity or Maya or any other render program. You'll have to set it up in whichever render program you use. But it can be a nice way to see what your poster will look like with some glow effects. And when you're done, you will export your textures for this project in Unity Universal Render Pipeline Metallic Standard. It is very important that you export in the correct pipeline.